All right, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to another amazing Sudozi Finance Friday. My name is Rose. I am the founder and CEO of Sudozi, where we're helping to automate FP&A. Every week, we get to speak with an amazing strategic finance professional. Today, we get to have Patrick Stewart join us as our guest. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks, Rose. Great to be here.
Patrick is you're the CFO of one of the coolest VR companies that I've seen. And we're excited to chat about that, but let's, as I was preparing this agenda, I think you have one of the most entrepreneurial CFO backgrounds that I've seen. So let's go a little bit further back and just chat about the Navy. Love to understand what your thought process was in making some of those decisions and some early experiences there.
Yeah. So there's a heritage of service from my family. It didn't have to be military, but military was definitely encouraged. So for my whole life, I knew I would be in the military. I just didn't know at what age and what period. My dad was in the military, and he did 2 different tours there. My brother is. My grandfather was. So it was very much like I wanted to go and participate. It was a sort of circuitous route, the going in, but I ended up in search and rescue as a rescue swimmer. My dad was a search and rescue guy before being a pilot, and it was like something that I really thought I would enjoy, and I loved it. The camaraderie was amazing, and I was lucky enough to be in some positions at the inn to run some full teams of people, like up to 12, and really cut my teeth and saw that I enjoyed being able to develop and carry out a vision. And I really liked working with people and mentoring them. And from there, that kind of gave me a taste of life that I wanted to live. And it definitely altered my perspective on life forever. And then very much guided me into entrepreneurship, which I hadn't expected at the time at all.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service. Thanks to the Stewart family for generations of service. I really deeply appreciate it, and it's something I don't often get to speak with someone who has had that experience. So thank you for the service there. And you mentioned entrepreneurship towards the end of that experience. What sort of relationships did you build, or exposure to the business world got you thinking about that sort of journey after your service?
So after that, it's not on my LinkedIn anymore, just to add some brevity to my LinkedIn, but I did an internship for I think it was 8 months at JP Morgan. And I just knew I needed to have an internship, and I was a little older because I had been prior service. And so I got an internship at JP Morgan in like 3 weeks after declaring for another major in the business school. And I walked in, and it was like deja vu. It was the exact same work center I had in the Navy. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I almost felt claustrophobic. And JP Morgan was a great place, but the role I was in was not the role I wanted to be in forever. And that was very apparent day 0. And that, so I finished that out, and it was a good experience in some ways, if nothing else, for information on what I didn't want to do. And then the next year, for my junior year, I kind of went out and I talked to JP Morgan again about moving to a different division. Ended up meeting with Goldman and a variety of other groups. I actually wanted to work in economic consulting, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get past the first round, and I ended up at Goldman. I spent half of my summer at Goldman in New York, and then I spent the other half down in the new Dallas office that they had just recently acquired. And the culture really hadn't translated there. And I kind of felt like Goldman is truly a special place, especially 200 West New York. It was an amazing experience. And I have nothing but high regard for people that I worked with there. They're truly best in class and friends to this day. And that network is way more powerful than I thought it would be, because people still consider me a Goldman person. And I guess that's cool. I didn't think it would carry through from an internship, but when I finished there, and especially JP Morgan, it felt like I was a cog in the wheel. And I was going out for, what would be my career job when I was going to graduate. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel necessarily like powerful or useful. And, I just finished running a team of 12. We had won a lot of awards in the Navy. We performed a lot of really intense and high op tempo, and austere environments, performing really excellent. And I felt like at Goldman or JP Morgan, if I didn't show up the next day, that like my work wouldn't matter. Like someone would fill it.
Like it would be okay.
Yeah. And it was like if I'm putting 10 units in, I wasn't getting like 100 on the other side. I was getting like 1/100th on the other side. Not to say it's not valuable, but I was a little older. And so it was like, I want to look for a place where I can kind of dig in and lead some people and like just use grit and determination as like truly to my advantage. And so I really started to look for mid-market PE shops that might want someone and startups in the Dallas area. And I ended up meeting up with Boone Pickens, had a brand new private equity arm, BP Energy Partners, and they had formed up and they had a brand new company that they had a contract from a potential customer and $25 million check, and they didn't have anything else, no process, no operational departments or anything. And they're like, hey,
no P&L.
Oh no, I mean nothing. And they were like, hey, we're working with Boone Pickens and BP Energy Partners, which is a really big deal in Dallas, but and they're a great shop. Would you want to come here and help us with finance, some accounting, and definitely a lot of operations, and just be a Swiss Army knife? And that was exactly what I was looking for. And they were like, we've never led anyone before, and you have. Can you help us? And so I launched the logistics department there, the general operational department of like standing up these power systems across the country. I launched the model for financing and accounting, and I ran everything except for sales there. And ran it from, I wouldn't say day zero, but day one. And it was a fantastic experience. But I really felt like, for a variety of reasons I won't go in, that there was something next for me. And at the time I was in Dallas, and I felt like if I had seen a lot more case studies, that I could have convinced other people at the board and on my team to lean into the things that I was saying that I knew were true, but my resume necessarily didn't say it, or I couldn't explain it in like a very succinct way.
Crisp.
And
yeah. My gut says this.
Exactly. And, I think the older you get, the more you learn that pithy statements are really powerful. And so I ended up looking for like a venture shop. So I was almost kind of like going back again. And there was a Peter Thiel and Ajay Royan had Mithril Capital, and they were departing the Bay Area. And it was like first of the first to leave Bay Area and come to Austin and say like, we're done with this place. And I had followed Peter for only a couple years. I just was ignorant to it before. And there was a gentleman by my, lucky enough for me, it's very serendipitous, and these things I think often are. He was a SEAL team guy, and he was their chief of staff. So, we started talking, and, a big thing for Jay and Peter in the network is grit and determination, grit and adversity. And, my whole thing is like, I can learn anything, and like, I won't quit till I learn it. And, so I interviewed there for months. I mean, all hours of the night and day. And eventually I ended up getting an offer there and moved down to Austin. And I spent 4 years there in the investment team. It was truly fantastic. I don't know that being an operator translated as much as I had hoped it to investor. It does from the soft skill standpoint, but not as much from like an underwriting standpoint. But it was a great experience. I mean, truly the smartest people I've ever worked with, the best at like thinking orthogonally in like multiple layers deep in the onion, and just curious, very good people. I mean, I couldn't say enough about them. It was a very sad day to leave, but at the end of the day, I kind of felt like, the older I think when you're younger, I think you should try to correct and strengthen your weaknesses. and know what your strengths are, or try to be identifying them. And as you get a little older, it's like, okay, now I need to start playing to my strengths, because that's like
cashing in on the advantages.
yeah. And it's kind of like, you know who you are, you know what you're good at.
Yeah.
And it's time to take advantage of those. When you're younger, you're still trying to like narrow that and understand yourself. And you really shouldn't neglect something because it's hard. And at Mythro is like, for me, working with people and creating a vision is not, it's just like venture capital and growth equity investing in general are just not like heavily collaborative dynamic environments in the same way, not to diminish them, but it's very much a lot of and it was great to work with people who, I mean, they had built their careers here. They knew they were so much better at than I was, and just be next to them, learning and be a thought partner with them was just a blessing. But to take those learnings and then go back to the operating environment, I'd always considered myself way more of a COO than a CFO. And then I was helping one of our CEOs at Mythro plan what their IPO could be and how to think about it, and work, how to work backwards from what we would want for our people and our product, and, what the market was telling us. And then I had a couple offers for CFO at the same time. And then a very dear friend of mine that we had been at Mythro together, he was like, hey man, like, you're an operator, like, through and through. And like, you've got these CFO offers, you're doing CFO work for these people here and you love it. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know. And I was kind of thinking about it. And then I get an inbound from Win Reality wanting me to interview. And I was kind of like, at first I kind of had to take a step back, and I was like, well, I guess this is not really a sign, but this is really interesting. And, I had to take off the Mythro hat of where the underwriting is like, you're truly looking for something spectacular, and be like, okay, like, I want to think about this for what this could be, because sports technology is not something that would be in the Mythro bucket. It was a lot of deep tech. So I had to take my hat off there and like look at this from like a base of being a good investment for me, and it being a good investment for a different kind of shop. And since then, I think I'm like right at 6 months that I joined, but, went through a recruiting process there. And, now I think I was telling you before we jumped on the call, I've got enterprise sales here. I've got people ops underneath me, accounting and finance, and I'm de facto GC by necessity. And we're growing like crazy. It's exactly what I would expect. And it's funny, those years operating in Dallas under Boone Pickens have translated way more than I had expected, because I'd almost forgotten about those lessons where like they're active and useful again.
Yeah. How much, if you were to weight the percentage, how much of your operating experiences from Boone Pickens came back versus how much of your investing experience are you using day to day from Mythro?
I'd say it's kind of like split, in that when I'm thinking about best ways to grow a business, and like, let's think around, the big thing at Mythro is like, let's think around the corner to what no one else is considering, and then compound into that. And so it's always trying to find these hidden gems. And then to do that, you have the fundamentals of what would be a good business and what the market will tell you. So that's valuable for, let's say, the planning, the forecasting, the where should we be, what looks good, right? What looks good for an IPO or a fundraise. So it's like, that's 50% of my mind almost. The other 50% is really developing people, developing talent. And that's where my Navy days in being an operator before is like execution, and then getting people. If I'm a good executioner, that's great. But if I can make 10 other people underneath me fantastic executioners, now I've really hacked the system.
That's the 10 to 100 plus versus just you. Yeah.
100%. And really getting other people to be more powerful and aligned with the business, to where they're achieving for their lives and their careers, and that's aligned with the business. And that just comes through trust, and that comes through clarity. And but once you have that, you have magic, and that can proliferate throughout the entire org. Yeah.
I know we've really like zoomed past this. It's been super fascinating. A couple things I want to make sure we get your thoughts on before we hop off. So one is this time of year, January, budgets, year-end close, board meetings. Just your thoughts on budgets right now, particularly in your market with the macro environments. How are you thinking about putting the numbers together and reforecast and things like that?
It's a little easier for us because we weren't at a place to where we were in like peak froth raise. And Chris and the executive team here and our investors as a whole and our board, they fundamentally set out to be like in some ways the antithesis of the frothy like landscape, to where it's like we want to run in a way that we can control our destiny, and and it's not grow at all costs, which is very much a Jay and Peter arrangement. So it's like, hey, I know this playbook very well. I've had some fundamental training from some truly like great people. So that's a little different for us. So it's like, hey, how do we underwrite the next 2 years? Like I look at a lot of these as underwriting and like, okay, what does go, no go look like for this initiative? Like, let's tinker and test. All right, this initiative, we can A/B test it. And then like, what would success look like at 2 months? What would failure look like 2 months, so that we're constantly looking for one of those to break out, so that we can either compound in more cash, slightly push forward and underwrite it again, or pull the plug. And I think you have to.
All right. So quickly before we wrap up, plug for Win. Do you play baseball? And any other fun facts?
Yeah, I don't play baseball. I like to ski, and I like to fly fish a lot. But I would say Win is a lot more than just about baseball. Like baseball is always will be our DNA and it's fundamental. But this is about empowering the future generation of coaches and athletes and engaging in a three-dimensional digital environment. Like we're trying to recreate exactly what you have on the field, but in your home, to where you don't have to have a pickup game to practice and gain your edge. Like we want it to be social, we want it to be fun, and most of all, we want you to truly get better. I think it's a fantastic place to work. We're at a great location. We have an awesome team, and we're building it every day and growing it out. One of the biggest bugs I've been working through here is, just getting more data analysts here in the team to really segment and dive into what matters and what's running our business. And I think if you go to our career page or LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of that. But anyone who's passionate about empowering the athlete and technology should venture over to our page and take a risk. And you may not meet all the qualifications, but apply.
Absolutely. We'll definitely plug that afterwards as well. I think this would be the dream job for so many folks I know in the data world and finance as well. All right. Well, wrapping up here, Patrick, would love to hear any last minute tips for finance folks going into the year, and or any fun facts or things about you before we end the session today.
I think it's just management. In the helicopter world, you had 2 jobs as a crew, and it was not running out of gas and not getting lost. And I see it's the same thing for the executive team, and it's need to have enough cash, and that's your gas, and need to have a vision of where you're going. And I would just underwrite like your expectation for each like milestone, and think 2 years out, tactically and strategically 10 years. And that's the inspirational fun part, the 10 years.
I love it. Thank you, Patrick. I'm sure so many people can extrapolate those and apply that to their businesses today. All right. Thanks for your time. Good luck with the board meeting next week. I'm sure you won't need it, but really appreciate everything today. Enjoy chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks for us. Happy to be here.